You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time for British Wrestling's sharpshooter, your host, Stu Palmer.
Warm welcome to episode 27 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast. This week's guest is none other than Flyin Brian Pillman Jr. Now, I've had a lot of feedback about this episode prior to it going live, and I asked your questions to him. Firstly, what pleasure it was to ask some of them questions as well. Some really good questions, and he really enjoyed answering them. We talk about Brian's career so far. We talk about his start training at Lance Storm's highly acclaimed wrestling school, which probably will reopen after Lance has now been let go by WWE. So one of the most highly regarded schools where Brian's trained, with some great multinational, international talent too, as you'll get to hear. We talk about Brian's dad, Brian Pillman Sr, his career, how he set the trend many years ago. His dad tagging with Stone Cold Steve Austin as one half of the Hollywood Blondes, among other great topics. So here we go, episode 27 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast with Flyin Brian Pillman Jr. Enjoy. Well, it is my honour and privilege to have on this evening, all the way from, you're in Kentucky, aren't you, Brian?
Yes, sir. All
the way from Kentucky, it's Brian Pillman Jr., the man with the best mullet in pro wrestling, probably in pro sports, I'd say.
You got that right, brother.
How are things currently with no bookings, Brian? How are you dealing with it at the moment?
I'll tell you what, it's been really rough on me, mentally and physically. At least my body's given it time to regenerate. But the challenge physically is staying in shape right now. You know, I've got a pretty natural build, so I'm very blessed to have that, that genetics on my side. But some guys, it's hard to keep them in shape, and it's hard. It's hard to travel around and stay in shape. But yeah, right now, nobody's wrestling, nobody's traveling. It's rough. Our whole livelihood, the way we make a living as wrestlers, is basically put on hold right now. So my goal right now is to sort of stay afloat financially so that I can fill out and finish my dream.
Cool, man, cool. I'm just going to obviously extend off that now. What's your training regime been like? Obviously with gym shut and stuff, how have you adapted your training?
Yeah, so I've got some secret, top secret access to a ring this weekend. So that'll be the first time I get in there and get to shake the ring rust off. We had a small condo gym down the street from us that we were able to use, but they just recently shut that down. So my workouts are sort of limited to at-home things, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, that whole deal.
Okay. Right, I'm going to go into, when did you first start watching wrestling? That's normally the first question I ask, but obviously I've gone a bit current with the current situation.
Well, I would imagine I was watching wrestling as I came out the womb. But as far as, as a fan, like an intellectual fan, I wasn't really taking wrestling as serious and watching it as much until I got into my 20s. When I was 4 and 5 years old, they had the memorial shows, and I got to meet all the wrestlers, and it was a very good kind of atmosphere. But as the years went on, I got into my adolescence. There wasn't any opportunities to meet any of the guys. The bridges had sort of been burnt. There wasn't a lot of desire for me. I kept getting, I would get sad when I saw wrestling, because it would remind me of what I had lost. And that sort of gives me a purpose in this world and in this life, is to sort of reclaim, what my name one time meant, to a household name. The Pillman name is synonymous with pro wrestling, and it's the absolute honor to continue to live that out as Brian Pillman Jr.
So pre-adolescence, which superstars did you gravitate to? We'll talk about them firstly.
Oh, I always loved the Hardy Boys. That was like my big thing. They were like my absolute favorite. It's funny because like they're one of the few wrestlers I've met and really just like kind of marked out for like the star power of them. Like just really like whoa. So it was interesting to meet them and for them to have gone and done those memorial shows and taken care of us. at a young age, and even to this day, they remember me and they have great respect for me and what I'm doing. So I'm excited to run into them again in life down the road, perhaps soon. But no, I mean, Jericho was always a big fan. I was always a big fan of his growing up too. I tell people that all the time. It's like, that's the type of wrestler I want to be too. So it all kind of goes in line, right?
Sit down. Which match types did you like? What were you into as a youngster?
So I like I said, I like the Hardy Boys, so I was really into tag. It's kind of funny because I like tag matches as a kid, but as a wrestler, I don't really prefer them. But we've been having a lot more fun with them lately. But yeah, I mean, always enjoyed matches. Tag matches, high action. I always enjoyed those angles that Edge and them would do with like the girlfriend and like the love triangle angles, the dramatic stuff, and it ends up in a triple threat or something.
Did you have any favorite wrestling events on the calendar?
What do you mean?
In terms of obviously was it WrestleMania, Survivor Series, the Rumble, like a specific event?
I always loved the Hell in the Cell. I always enjoyed that. That was always really cool, really bold, really, really spicy to me. Really spicy.
Right, fast forwarding a bit again now. Where did you train to become a professional wrestler?
Oh, that's a good one. So I actually trained with Lance Storm at the Storm Wrestling Academy in Calgary, Alberta, where a lot of young and successful people have gotten the chance to train with him. He sort of, carried on that Heart Dungeon style of pro wrestling training, that Canadian style. So I was very honored to be a part of that. I was very honored to meet the Hart family while I was up there and really get a taste for what is to come.
Who was training with you at the school at the time? Were there any noteworthy people in there with you at the same time, or was it?
I don't know.
Was there any standouts?
Yeah, I don't know if you know any Irish wrestlers, but I was sharing a training group with Darren Kearney of More Than Hype. You ever heard of them? Yeah.
I'm not going to turn around and say yes when I haven't. I could say
they're
yes.
Young up and coming Irish tag team. They're one of the mainstays of OTT wrestling. You ever seen OTT?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I do know OTT. To be fair, yeah.
So I trained with him, and then I also trained with a couple guys from Australia that you probably won't know if you don't know Darren. But one of them was Vance Adams, and the other was Elijah Gregor Day. So they had a very international sort of class, which was really interesting to get to meet so many different people from different countries, right? So we had 2 Australians, we had an Irishman, obviously some Canadians and stuff, but yeah, we had a girl from India, I think. She was Indian, but no, we had I think Lance put on there was 6 or 7 different countries represented just in that class, so it was really neat to be a part of it.
Hell of an international vibe going on in that school at the time.
Yeah, it was cool. We had a lot of different accents being thrown around.
Where was your first pro wrestling match?
So my very first time actually getting in the ring, I went by a alias. I went by the name of Alex King, and I wrestled at the what did they call it? It was a very small promotion in Cincinnati that was run by a small church, and it was actually the home promotion of Cody Hawk, who was actually the original trainer of John Moxley. So it was really cool to have that connection too, and have my first match with Cody Hawk was a huge honor, as well as just being in the ring with someone super experienced. He had a pretty close tie to my family and the Cincinnati wrestling scene in general, and he was somebody that was quite well respected. So in all regards. I'm very happy that he was my first match. But my first match as Brian Pillman Jr. was against a young guy named Jonathan Wolf from Indianapolis. So, and ever since that first match, which to be honest, I really enjoyed it as a first match. I had a lot of fun with it. I put a lot of my heart into it. Coming back from Lance's school, I was still, you know, nice and fresh on the fundamentals. I was nice and ready and green, but well trained and green and ready and excited. So when you watch this match, you're like, oh wow, for a first match, you know, it's not too bad. But no, Jonathan Wolf is, I consider, a prodigy of the Midwest area. I think he's like 19 or 20 now, and he's doing great things. And I'm looking forward to connecting with him again and having maybe a series of matches.
Cool, man. Cool. Now, the first time I saw anything of you was basically shoot interviews and convention videos before I'd actually seen you in the ring. But I just want to scoot forward a little bit. So the first time I come to see you on the screen properly was of MLW, and it was the turn on Kevin Sullivan. How was that with doing that with Kevin Sullivan?
You know, Kevin is he's an old soul, of course, but he was you know, he was trying to butt into our business, and he was trying to sort of attach himself to the younger generation and keep himself relevant. And you know, we weren't having any of that, but it was nice to finally get revenge or work with somebody that had a pretty impactful part of my father's career. So yeah, that was quite interesting. You know, no hard feelings against Kevin, but you know, I think his time is up, and we ended up having a match together, and yeah, I think he's on his, I think he's chilling now. You know, he's not much involved with wrestling anymore. So
the stuff in WCW with your dad and man, blurred the lines, didn't it? You're like, what is this? I was probably about 10 at the time, and I was just like, is this real? What is going on? It was crazy. Crazy, man, but I just couldn't take my eyes off the screen as a young kid, man, here in the UK. So it was cool, man. What was your favourite bout of the Opera Cup 2019? I know we've fast forwarded past the New Heart Foundation. I'll get on to the New Heart Foundation in a minute. How was the Opera Cup?
The Opera Cup was super cool, super prestigious tournament, super good opportunity for me and Davey Boy to really showcase our talents as singles wrestlers and to really show and tell a cool story. The story being that, you know, I'm on death's door, and he's just an impressive physical specimen, and he really laid it into me. You know, he really beat me up, and he made me earn that Heart Dungeon respect. You know.
Cool. I loved that. I like the match with TJP as well, man.
Yes, that was when I was fresh, 100% ready to go. I had a lot of my ideas, and I had a lot of technical scouting that I had done on TJP. But you know, as the tournament goes, you're not quite sure who you're going to face and how far you're going to go. So I had only really known I was going to face TJ, and so the other matches I was worn down. I was out physical, you know, obviously Timothy Thatcher, a huge physical specimen, and Davey Boy Jr., a freaking prodigy and a physical monster. So, very, very happy to have shared the ring with those two guys, and I learned a lot in that tournament.
How did you enjoy doing the New Heart Foundation stuff? And I'm obviously going to include Teddy Hart in that when he was with you. How was that, doing the vignettes and the promos and stuff aside from the wrestling?
Oh, it was amazing. It was always a fun time. We never missed a beat with how organic everything was. You know, Teddy was always talking the talk, and Davey Boy was always backing it up with the muscle, and I was kind of in between, you know, unpredictable. You never really knew what I was going to get into. And we got into some fun antics, and they ended up putting a camera in front of us just in our regular everyday lives, you know, just because to see how, you know, entertaining we were. And I owe a lot to Teddy. I think Teddy was probably one of the greatest wrestlers, you know, in the ring of all time. And even as far as how much he sells his soul to the business, he's always in, he's always in character. He's always, and that's the thing. He doesn't really have a character because he is a character. Teddy Hart is pro wrestling. He lives it. He breathes it. Unfortunately, he's got some demons that catch up to him every now and then. But I think he'll still go down as history as a quite controversial, but also, a figure that contributed a lot of innovation and style to wrestling. So,
Brian, I like how you called yourself unpredictable. You're definitely your father's son.
Yeah, he was wild, and that's one of those things. You got to keep the people guessing, and sometimes I'm keeping myself guessing because I have no idea what the future holds, and especially right now with this situation. But my creative juices are flowing. I'm excited to get back in the ring here shortly, and I think things are going to be looking up for everybody.
Which guys do you like watching in the current scene? Who's floating your boat? Who do you like to watch?
I'm really. I try not to fanboy too hard these days, but I've been really enjoying, obviously MLW is my promotion, so I have great respect for all the wrestlers there. But I've been enjoying the AEW Dark on YouTube. It gives me a chance to watch some of my friends that I came up on the indies with, so and kind of see how they're doing. And so I always tune into AEW Dark because, that could be somewhere that develops new talent, and I like to see the new talent of the future because one day I could be working with them. So it's nice to kind of scout out their offense, see what they're all about.
Yeah, I didn't want you to necessarily. I wasn't trying to get you to play favourites or anything with that question, but it's just to see what you thought. Like, so yeah, that's cool, man. It's cool. Who do you feel is an untapped talent who's not where they should be at the moment?
It's hard to say. You know what I will say though? I thought the best, most badass wrestler I ever saw that I thought to myself, I was like, how the hell is this guy not like on top of the wrestling business? I just thought he was so good, and I've never seen him since. And I occasionally see his work on the network, but that Ilya Dragunov, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
mean, he's just on another level. I mean, he's awesome. He's a physical animal. I mean, he's an animal.
The first time I saw him was Progress.
Yeah.
That's the first time I got acquainted with Ilya Dragunov. But yeah, you can see it now on NXT UK.
Yeah, and he's right where he's supposed to be at NXT. But I just thought, wow, man. I mean, how is this guy not even bigger than that? It's like he's a physical specimen. He's a badass dude, and that's lately I've been kind of gravitating towards that style lately. It's like. It's not about being a face or a heel or this, that, or the other. It's just about going out there and kicking ass and just being a total badass. And he's a freaking badass. So
I like the fact that people have gone. I shouldn't really classify it as going down to NXT because it's not a downgrade, is it, in the slightest? But just seeing Balor on NXT UK and NXT again. It's so cool.
It's almost its own thing, its own brand, and I think a lot of people like it better. I think the storylines are a little more in line with having to wrestle each other, right? And WWE can get a little bit, overproduced at times. But no, I mean, it just depends. It's all this. Art form is built on itself, right? So whatever precedent that the WWE sets as the precedent, then everything else is going to kind of follow suit and fall in line. And I think NXT is right in line with where they need to be. And the fans and the types of fans that watch their show, that's their audience. There's no reason to try and breach outside of that.
From a fan perspective, that's what I like about NXT UK, MLW. NWA Power, it's that fast-paced hour of action. That's what I like.
Yeah,
that's why I'm more akin to watching.
Yeah,
thinking back
people these days they have smaller attention spans and they want to see more. They want to see more happen, and you can see it with how the video games are made and stuff too. they're usually designed to constantly reward and constantly give feedback, and that's what crowds want. They want to react and they want to stay involved without going and getting on their phone and stuff.
I'm an advocate. Hate to sound like Paul Heyman, but I'm an advocate for the hour, 100%. Just takes me back to the early 90s when I was watching Superstars and stuff. What's your thoughts on WWE and AEW still running shows?
They're doing their thing. I like that they're keeping people in the crowd. Like, they're not like fans, but they've got like other workers and stuff in the crowd hyping up the matches, and it does sound so much more natural than not having anybody there, and the venue that they're doing it in is like a bit smaller, so it keeps some of that rowdiness of a crowd, that illusion of that in there, whereas when I watched the WWE product, it felt very empty. Nobody's there. They're still doing this in this big venue, they're in the Performance Center. It's quite large for what they're trying to do. It holds like 4 or 5 rings. Well, they only need 1 ring, but no, I mean, it's incredible to see like the survival of these companies going through and still putting on products, still producing content for the fans, and I'm just happy that they're doing it.
I don't mind it so much with AEW, with obviously the heels and the faces either side. I've got a bit of atmosphere, but like you say, going back to WWE, all you've got is the announcers, haven't you? Really, I know some guys are coming down to ringside to matches, but yeah, I think it's worked a hell of a lot better with AEW the way they've been doing it. At least there's a bit more atmosphere going on. You're not just got the announcers, if that makes any sense. So Stu Tompkin said, Brian Pillman Jr. Wow. And then he said his question, you have so much talent and in-ring ability, you have star quality and the look. You seem destined for greatness within the world of wrestling, but at any time, have you thought it wasn't for you? And if so, what would you be doing if you weren't following your legendary father's footsteps?
I'll tell you what, I only really questioned myself early on in the business, because it was a lot to grasp mentally and physically. Yeah, I mean, there were a few times where I questioned if this was for me. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of long drives. But at the end of the day, once I became confident and once I went out to the ring with that confidence, nothing could stop me at that point. At that point, I knew what I was meant to do, and I knew I was meant to be a wrestler. So ever since that first, maybe that first 6 months, I haven't doubted myself since. So.
In regards to your attire, obviously you've got a look of your dad's attire, but how did you come up with your attire as well? Because I've noticed obviously some modifications in certain matches, and when you've changed stuff up.
My attire, my gear.
Yeah. I've noticed some of it is akin to what your dad's style, like the Bengals style. But obviously, I've noticed you've done.
Yeah.
I've had some modifications.
I've had some pretty different sets of gear. To be fair, I wore those trunks lately because I didn't have any trunks, and I've been liking the way I looked in trunks. So the trunks I've been wearing lately were actually my first pair of trunks ever, the black and white zebra tiger stripes or whatever. And then I've had several sets made since, and I was one of the first. I guess not one of the first, but I thought it was unique with my yellow set of gear to have the tassels on the one side and then the long tights on the other. And that set of gear actually fit me really well, and I truly miss it. But I actually lost those tights in a hotel room.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so those will be worth a lot of money if they're ever recovered out of a landfill or something. So
I reckon
I would definitely pay a pretty penny for them.
I'd say they might have made their way onto eBay, Brian.
Yeah.
Merely speculating there, of course.
Yeah. But somebody's got them. We were leaving a hotel room one morning. I had them hung up on the shower curtain to dry them, air them out from the sweat. And as I packed everything else, of course, my ex-girlfriend was rushing me out of the building. And I hate when people rush me, so I forgot my pants. So, and ever since then, I've never left anything in a hotel room. So you live and you learn, and every lesson you learn is another valuable asset to you. So.
It's that age-old question that we all ponder. Is wrestling fixed? This is Bill Apter, and my answer to that is I didn't know it was broken. So many of you know me from my days back at the classic wrestling magazines, and a lot of you from OneWrestling.com and OneWrestlingVideo.com. But I always get questions about various things I did through the years to propel my career to where it is today as the world's most recognizable journalist in pro wrestling. What was my relationship with the McMahons? Was I the guy who started that feud between the actor, comedian Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler? What is Ric Flair really like? Who are my favorites? Well, all this and more answered in my book that you can get online or at your favorite book dealer called Is Wrestling Fixed? I Didn't Know It Was Broken. It's a great read, got great views, and hopefully you'll be picking it up soon too. So the answer to Is Wrestling Fixed? You know it now. I Didn't Know It Was Broken. This is Bill Apter, and I'll see you at the matches.
How'd you find it being on the road? How's that been for you?
I love the road. You know, I love driving. I love flying around. I love meeting new people and trying new foods in different cities. I was truly living the dream. And to be sitting here at home and having all this time alone, it makes me wonder, how much I miss it, and how much I was taking for granted. So, but I couldn't really take it for granted because I was doing my best and I was going out there and I was killing it. So I don't think I was taking it for granted. I just didn't expect it to all be pulled out from underneath me.
Yeah, man. I can we as fans can only imagine, how mentally, you're set to that way. You've been traveling around, man. I can only imagine how it could be for you, man.
Yeah.
So yeah. Chris Lappin, love your work in MLW. When normality returns, are you wanting to go into the tag title scene with Davey Jr. or get your hands on Myron Reed and take his middleweight title? I thought that was a good question, that.
Yeah.
I like that. He's done well there, Chris Lappin.
He's done his research there, Chris. And, Chris, I have a lot of fun tagging with Davey Boy. And my most recent match was actually in Tijuana, Mexico. So we had a great match down there, successful victory. We're actually undefeated in Tijuana as a tag team. I don't know how well I'll do as a singles wrestler out there, but definitely as a tag team, we are very successful there. We're undefeated actually on all fronts. I don't think. Well, maybe we lost to the Dynasty in a ladder match, but that was a 6-man deal.
Yeah.
But as a tag, me and Davey Boy are undefeated. We are a threat to be dealt with. So I'm really looking forward to that. But Myron, as we've stated, is kind of putting a very, very bad reputation on the middleweight title. I think someone with a little more prestige, with a little more class, deserves to hold it. And they're constantly blaming the refs and this, that, and the other, and they're being held back. But to be honest, they just need to get their act together and get some nicer gear and try to step in the ring with some pros. Because right now they're just a bunch of kids, and they don't understand the finer nuances of the business to be getting in there with me. So we'll see what happens. I'm pretty sure the middleweight title is going to be a pretty clean, pretty easy take. Unless these Injustice members really want to make things hard on me.
What about the crooked officiating in Tijuana, Brian? There's a hell of a lot going on. Well, what's happening?
I can't comment on anything, but I will say that the officials in Tijuana are they might have a different rule book over there as opposed to here. So.
I liked how that was getting discussed on commentary. We got MLW on Monday over here.
Yeah.
So I liked how that was getting spoken of. And
I've noticed that MLW is quite popular over there, and I definitely experienced that when I did my 10-day tour of the UK. It was a lot of fun. A lot of the fans had known me from MLW, so it was pretty. It was pretty cool to see that and have a lot of people come to shows and draw a little house for everybody and get everybody invested.
I'm impressed, man. I'm not just blowing smoke either on that one. I like all different companies, obviously, but yeah, I've been solid with MLW now since 2018. Obviously, it was YouTube mainly to begin with, but now we've got Free Sports in the UK, which has got a big outreach. It's getting into a lot of homes on Free Sports, MLW. So that's good. I think it's good for you guys, getting new eyes on the product.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good deal to have that international exposure for sure.
I like Cornette when he was there, to be honest with you. I love Jim Cornette, man. I love it. I still love him 25, 30 years later.
Yeah, you know, and to be honest, you know, Jim, it says a lot of things that are very true. You know, Jim is oftentimes right, you know, and that's the sad thing, is that somebody like him maybe kind of tarnished his reputation of being a credible source of information because he went out and said some very juvenile things, some very irresponsible things, and that's gonna live with him for the rest of his life. But at the same time, you know, he was saying those things in the 80s, he was saying those things in the 90s and stuff. So it just catches up with you if you don't adapt with the times, and people are so judgmental now. People are the first people to judge these days, but nobody wants to look in the mirror. You know, nobody wants to judge themselves and reprimand their own actions. But it's really easy to just, you know, call other people out and be a virtue signal and you know, claim to be this good person. But at the same time, it's actually going out there and doing something with your life is what matters. It's not sitting behind a keyboard and claiming to be the good guy, you know.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. He's not going to change. He's been the same. I know times have changed, but I wouldn't expect the bloke to change. You know, that's how we know. That's how we know him. He speaks his mind. I'd much rather.
He has a great following, great fan base. Yeah. Generates a lot of money for himself. So
I don't listen to his podcast in the entirety, but I do watch clips on YouTube that they put up, and he speaks a lot of sense, man. He's got his own views and stuff, but you know, in the main, I'll always listen to his podcast.
Yeah.
David G asks, what is your favourite match of your dad's?
You know, my new favorite match I just watched of his the other night. I'd seen it before in my younger years, but I just refreshed the memory on it. It was my dad and Scotty Flamingo at the Fall Brawl. It was awesome. It was tight. I enjoyed it. I thought seeing Raven in a different light was really cool, and they told a great story. As my dad being the baby face, and Raven just kind of had that high school bully look to him, you know, and then the infamous spot on the ramp that was recreated on AEW Dynamite was really cool. So there's a lot of cool history to my father's career. You know, like the amount of people he locked up with, you know, and the types of guys that he shared a ring with. I mean, even to this day, I'll go to a convention and I'll get to talk to those guys. And it's just like, whoa, it's like I'm getting to talk to my dad because I'm getting to hear a story, you know, from them about him and his experience with them. So wrestling is really a great way for me to reconnect with my father and his spirit.
No, obviously, yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. Dewi Roberts asks, this is a good pal of mine, Dewi Roberts, big fan. He's been over to Mania, to the States many times, and he asks, who is your dream opponent and what type of match would you have?
You know, obviously, I would want to have a singles match with Chris Jericho. Honestly, I think it would be great. I just like the way he wrestles. Yeah.
Look how he's adapted over 30 years, man.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if he's old, if he's young, give me any version of him, right? And I could do with it. I could have a great match with him.
I love the fact that he went back to Japan, you know. Got those matches in with, like, you know, the younger guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Genius.
This is from Mike Mad Dog Angus. Now, I sent a photo of Mike over on Twitter to you before, but I don't know if you'd seen it. He was he's from the TNT crew. He's a ring announcer, TNT in Liverpool. I know you've met loads of people, obviously. I've
I've been up to TNT before.
Yeah. So he asked, his question was, the Hollywood Blondes, in my opinion, one of the best and most underrated tag teams of all time. Would you ask Brian Pillman who would be his stunning Steve? And he's bracketed it. He said tag partner ? And then it's quite a long one, this. Bloody hell, Mike. What are you doing to me here? He said maybe Cody Hall.
I was actually really impressed with Cody Hall's work when I saw him out in England. I think he's a very, very formidable guy. I think he's very large, but also very athletic. I think he has a lot of swagger, a lot of charisma. I think he just needs to figure out the logistics of wrestling and where he's going to live and where he's going to work and operate, and he might need to play the politics game a little bit better. He tends to rub people the wrong way, but at the same time, I think he's got a boatload of potential. Trained in Japan, he really knows how to work, and it's just something you don't see a lot. He really knows how to work like a big guy, big man style. So, no, I think it'd be great to have a match with him or to tag with him. I always imagine tagging with like some big guy, to kind of, because like with Davey Boy, makes sense.
The yin to yang
if I was actually to form the Hollywood Blondes, there's a couple guys that I would think about, and one of them was Matt McIntosh from the Northeast area here in the States. Big time New Jersey wrestler. Looks exactly like Steve Austin.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then, but in a more relative sense, I could see myself tagging with Alex Hammerstone.
Oh, he's incredible. What a talent! What a talent he is.
That was really cool. So him being blonde, and I could just get blonded up again and stuff like that. So you got to be a heel if you're doing that. We want some heelish tactics from you, man. Get the real sinister side of Brian Pillman Jr. out. That's what we're looking for, man. Yeah, I get a little more sinister every day. I enjoy the energy of the crowd, and I enjoy being a babyface. But at the same time, I really like picking people apart and beating them up and just being an overall piece of shit. I'm excited to do that.
I'd tell you what, Brian, just to go on to the Blondes, Austin said it many times, but that tag team was cut short, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
They had a lot more mileage, didn't they? A lot more matches in them, man. I'm only quoting Austin here, really, but it does make sense. There was a lot more mileage in that tag team at the time, looking back.
Oh, and sometimes people cut things short because it's too good, and there could have been some politics involved where maybe a different tag team or somebody didn't want the spotlight taken from them too much because they could have been too good, Maybe they were just supposed to be heels. There was a number of times where my dad or Steve were set up as job guys, to go out there and to not get over and to not be stars. But their natural charisma and talent just outshines it. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, it doesn't matter if you lose a match or win a match and you're on the indies and this, that, or the other. It's like, as long as you're getting paid and you're going out there and looking like a star every time you go through the curtain, because eventually the cream will rise.
And in all fairness, they had some kick-ass matches against one another after it, to be fair. They had their matches afterwards, didn't they? But yeah. Just from a fan standpoint, I wanted to see more of it. But did I boo them as a child at the time? Yeah, I probably did boo them when I was watching them as a child. But obviously, as I got older, I got to respect what they were doing, watching the matches back years later. This is from Kevin Williams. And he says, your dad was an absolute solid talent, enjoyed by many over here in the UK. From his WCW Hollywood Blonde days to WWF, he was the man. If you could wrestle anyone from the early 90s era, who would it be?
From the 90s?
That's his question, Kev's very 90s, early 90s, like myself. We're not Attitude Era guys, you see.
I love the early 90s. Yeah, I was actually watching. I would love... let me see what year that match is. Let me see what year that match is, because that's the yeah, 1992. I would like to be in the ring with Doug Furnace and Crawford and those guys from All Japan. The early 90s All Japan was just the coolest stuff.
What was standing out for you stylistically with those matches?
It's particularly, Kobashi, Kikuchi, and Furnace and Crawford, those tag matches that they had, just the way that the offense would transition and the way that these guys were just jacked up out of their minds and they could still move and they could still do so much and they had so much professionalism in their style that was just highly, it was just such a high level thing where it looked so good, it looked so brutal, but a trained eye could see that this is a professional, so these guys weren't dangerous, they were physical and they probably did a lot more damage to their own bodies, which than they should have. And maybe that culture of wrestling in Japan was maybe a little more shooty at the time, maybe a little more snug at the time, but just watching this matches, man, it's incredible to see the physicality, but just how artful it is and the transitions that they told, the stories they told, the reactions that they got in Japan during those early 90s. So if you want to watch the best wrestling, I think it's early 90s All Japan. So
cool, man. Good answer. Good. I like that. That was very good. My this is going full circle. My editor, Chris Dutton, he edits the show, and he's asked, question for Brian, dude. I don't know if he's calling you dude or me dude, but we'll go with it. If you would be so kind as to indulge me, excluding the obvious answer, which is the lockdown being lifted, what is the one thing you would like to see changed about the wrestling world today in comparison to the time period when your dad was an active wrestler? Good question, that, Chris. Fair play.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we do need to take a step back into history, and we really need to protect this business more. There's too many people in it that are making a living in wrestling, and they have no respect for the history of it, and they have no respect for the foundation of it. And to be fair, those people aren't going to last anyways. Those people are not going to be around in the future, despite them having success. If you don't give your soul to wrestling, if you don't give your life to it, and if you don't respect it and truly believe in it, then you're not going to last in this business. And we've just got too many people that want to play wrestler these days. They just want to play it like it's just some fun thing, and it's not. This is our lifestyle. This is how we make a living. This is a very serious thing. Lance Storm told me the first day of training, he's like, unfortunately, kid, you're not going to have any time to play around because everybody's going to be watching you from day one, and you're going to be already being watched. You're going to have to treat it like a job from day one. Yeah. So from day one, I got to treat this like a job.
Just to go on to Lance Storm, you just said about him. I wonder whether he's probably going to open his school back up, isn't he?
Hey, I mean, he might have to. Maybe I'll text him and find out.
It's just like, idea. He's done all that. He's closed it down, and then, yeah, man.
I'm gonna have to text him right now.
One of the most highly regarded schools in the world, isn't it? Brian's putting a text
Sorry,
in.
I had a message. So I just thought about that. Yeah, I just thought about that. As you said that, I was like, you know what? Because I thought about it earlier. I was like, I bet he opens the school back up.
Surely now, just carry on doing what he was doing. I've got, this has gone like round the globe and back again. Richie Sorrentino. Now I'm going to read this message out in full. He says, let's read. Tell him Richie said, what's up? The one who introduced him to Bret Hart in New Orleans. I would also like to ask him if his girlfriend is still in New York. But I asked because when things get back to normal, might have some stuff for him. That was his question. Richie Sorrentino.
Oh, I've heard of Richie Sorrentino. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. that was
his
his
question again. I'm really out of it. I just woke up and what was the question again? I'm so sorry.
Tell him Richie said, what's up? The one who introduced him to Bret Hart in New Orleans. I also want to ask.
Yeah. I remember him.
If him and his girlfriend if his girlfriend's still in New York. That I asked because when things get back to normal, I'll have some stuff for him. This is what he said.
Yeah. No, tell Richie. Samantha's still someone that I'm in contact with. So she's a very sweet girl, and I'll probably be able to go up there and see her at some point. But yeah, if he wants to get together and then talk some projects, I'd be more than willing to work with the guy.
I'm trying to get Barry Horowitz through him to get him on. So yeah, cool, man. That's cool.
They're at the big event in New York City, maybe the next big event, and do some signings and stuff. It's hard.
They need to get you younger guys over as well, man.
Yeah, it is harder though. You got to have that draw power. So I was very blessed to be brought over. Because I could sell some tickets and help elevate the scene.
Yeah.
But Matt Riddle had a good run over there in England too. He brought in a lot of mystique and a lot of skill to that scene. So, and he learned and he developed, and that's how we all learn. You go on different tours to different countries and you pick up some different styles, and he's killing it in NXT. I mean, he's a mainstay. I think he's going to be one of the biggest things ever.
I remember him in the MMA, man. You know what I mean? So it's cool. It was cool to see. It's cool to see him do so well, and having the thing with Goldberg as well backstage. That was pretty funny. I'm not your bro, and he just stays in his face, doesn't he?
Yeah. He told me they really don't like each other. It's a shoot.
At the end of the day, he'd end up tying Goldberg like a pretzel. Let's have a fight.
He's definitely a wrestler. Yeah, he's definitely a wrestler for sure. He's a very ground-based guy.
So in relation to MLW, which places were booked before COVID, which obviously you couldn't fulfill your bookings? Where were you meant to be going after Mexico? That's my question.
Where was I meant to be going?
Whichever states.
So I was actually going to be going to Las Vegas that very next weekend. I didn't even get home until like a day before, though. I had like no time at all, and I came down with a sickness. I had some flu-like symptoms right as this COVID was dropping. So I had to make a very hard decision for my own personal, life to turn down a potential payday of quite a bit of money, So I turned down a lot of money to keep myself safe during this time and to keep other people safe. I didn't want to be traveling, getting on a plane right as all this is going down, And I had to talk with the promoter. I was like, hey man, I'm really sorry, but I can't bring myself to get on that plane. I was just frozen. I was ready to order the Uber, but I was like, dude, I'm coughing, I'm sniffling. I got a headache. I got flu-like symptoms. I don't know what it could be. And even if it was, obviously it wasn't the COVID, but it could have been anything. It could have got anybody sick. And that's the only time I've ever canceled a show. So I've lived up to my Teddy Hart always told me, he's like, never miss a show. He's like, your dad never missed a show. Never miss a show. So out of respect for my father and Teddy, I plan to never miss a show. So unless I absolutely have to,
Yeah, that comes across as well, man. Absolutely.
Lance texted
wait.
But it wasn't in his plans. It wasn't in his plans. Here we go.
I won't get in the way of you and Lance.
It's not plans, but I know Lance Storm. I know that he has this huge itch for wrestling, and he loves wrestling so much. So if he doesn't get his job back, he'll definitely do something in wrestling. He might get back in the ring. Who knows?
I'd like to see him back in the ring. Actually, get him in Jericho together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm coming today. No, maybe jumping around all of it. Yeah, that'd be fun to see him in Jericho tag. Maybe I'll tell him that.
Yeah, we didn't. Obviously at the time we didn't get Smoky Mountain, so it was years later. The only time we knew about Smoky Mountain was when Cornette came into WWF. So
Yeah, he said nobody's going to be traveling internationally very soon for training. So,
how long? You know, obviously you're in the same place for weeks. There's weeks of tapings done with MLW. How many days? How many days?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So we do 4 weeks. We do 4 episodes in one night. As far as the matches and stuff goes, and then we do the vignettes, and we might use vignettes from another taping and this, that, and the other. But we basically film 4 weeks worth of content in one night, which is quite huge. You know, it's 4 hours, right? Because it's an hour each episode. It's 4 hours of content, right? And we're taping it, and sometimes there's 15, 16 matches on the card, and I'm in 5 of them. And and no, it's a lot of workload. It's a lot of stuff to happen. So
I've always been told, right, even if a question sounds stupid, ask it. So I thought I'd ask it, and I wanted to know something I didn't know. So it might sound stupid to you, like, but yeah, I just daft things that I always want to know about. and it always seems to be like good capacity there as well. At the events, man, the turnouts are good, aren't they?
Yeah, so the way that MLW does their venues and stuff works out really well. The areas are well marketed. They're areas that we know there's wrestling fans, and the venues are designed in a way to fill them up and make it look like it's the most packed, event going on in town. So I'm very blessed to be able to wrestle up in Queens, New York. I can't wait to go back there. It's one of my favorite venues. I'm very blessed to be in Cicero, Chicago, out there in a very large arena. We fill that place up with 2,000 people. Now the venues in New York are a lot smaller, maybe 500, 800 people. But we go to Chicago, it's popping off. We went to Dallas, Texas. We had 800 people.
That was going to be my next question. What was Dallas like for the supercards and stuff, man?
Oh, Dallas is awesome, man. I had one of my best matches there. One of my favorite matches was there against Fatu. Super incredible beast there. Big guy, just incredible athlete. But unfortunately, I lost the match to him. But I would say there's a weight class discrepancy, and I almost had him if it wasn't for the injustice.
Can you not put a little bit more weight on, a bit more muscle on, Brian?
Yeah, I do need to put some more muscle on. To be fair, though, for the middleweight title, I should be losing weight because I'm above the 205 weight limit. So I need to decide if I want to lose weight or if I want to get jacked up out of my mind. Part of me just wants to get jacked up out of my mind. Do you know I really like? Big fan of his, and it's him as a whole. I'm not really into like the extreme style. Mance Warner, I like. He's just a walking bucket of charisma. Yeah.
The promos and the stuff with Alicia Ratoot backstage, it's just sometimes you can't teach it, can you?
No, you can't. Like I was telling you earlier, some of that charisma. We just can't teach it, and Mance is a guy that, he's pro wrestling every day. He wakes up, he's pro wrestling. He goes to bed, he's pro wrestling. When he eats food, he's pro wrestling. He's always in character. He's always Mance Warner, and that's why I love him. I love me some old Mancer now.
He reminds me of the Briscoes in ROH,
Yeah.
He reminds me look how long the Briscoes have been doing it, and that guy, I'm telling you, shoot him to the moon. He's going places. He is.
He's that old master of the moon now.
It's just. I'm not mega into extreme style. I like a normal wrestling match. But
I do like the thing. Like, I don't even care about that either. Like, I don't watch him for his hardcore matches.
No.
I like his promos, and I like him as a character. I don't really need to see him bleeding and shit, but he knows that that's what gets over with the fans. And like you always say, red is green, right?
He needs to keep open up a few cold ones like Austin. I've noticed he's been doing that recently.
Yeah.
Couple of cold ones backstage, man. Obviously you're in AEW for a bit. What's your working relationship with AEW now? That was going to be like my last question.
AEW, great company. Obviously they're in their infancy stages, and they're going through developing young, new talent, and those guys are just killing it right now. Darby Allin is probably one of the most talented human beings I've ever met in my life. He's just an absolute, just an anomaly of a person. Huge credit to him. Huge credit to Cody for betting on all these guys. A lot of people could have been overlooked and not used at all. They're just a gimmick or this, that, or the other. But he really bet on a lot of young people, and he made some big stars in that company. So a lot of people doubted them. A lot of people doubted Marco Stunt. They doubted Sammy Guevara. They doubted all these guys that are doing these big things. And I'm nothing but excited. I'm excited to see where they go and how they develop, and I'm excited to see how I develop in MLW, and hopefully I can mirror their star power, and maybe down the road, if I do end up working there, I'll already be a nice, well-established star. So.
That's just what I like, seeing people cross-promotional. That's what I was getting to. Like, obviously seeing you there. And obviously MJF, but obviously he's not with MLW anymore. But it was cool seeing you guys working for the two. I'll just say, like, obviously the likes of you and MJF, you're on AEW.
Oh, yeah. So Max was very fortunate that his contract was about to run out, and he could kind of bridge that gap over to AEW. So he's a perfect fit for them. He was a star in MLW, and he's a huge star in AEW, and he's a huge talking point. He's a huge he creates plots, so there's always a plot with MJF in the mix, and people love him or hate him. He's doing some great work for the business. He respects the business more than those other people I was talking about earlier, those younger people that aren't paying it respect. So I have a ton of respect for Maxwell. He's personally a good friend of mine.
And there's
I hate him. I hate him, but he's my friend.
There's no off button with that man.
No, there's not at all.
And that's what we like. Keep it going. Very old school values. Very old school. I like it, man.
Yeah.
But also, just going on to the dynasty now with Richard Holiday, Hammerstone, and Gino, it'll give them a bit more screen time now, won't it? Now that MJF's gone.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Which is great.
Bringing in Gino Medina. Is going to be a huge part of the dynasty right now. Another super talented guy, and I'm looking forward to kicking his ass to show that I can hang with the best of them. So he's like a little Eddie Guerrero Jr. I'd like to say.
Right, Brian, it's come to that time of the night, afternoon. I want you to plug the social media. I do this with all the guests.
Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. I was happy to be a part of this. It was a lot of fun, a lot of unique questions. If you want to ask me more questions or just kind of see what I'm up to, you can follow me on Twitter at Flyin Brian Jr. or on Instagram at Flyin Brian 41. Yes, I'm still in somewhat shape, but I need to get back in the tanning bed, and I need to get jacked again and get in better shape again. So it's all part of the process, baby. Follow me, follow my wrestling and my fitness journey, and maybe we'll do some other things along the way. Maybe we'll go to the Dominican Republic and get tan again and drink some beer.
Flyin Brian Pillman Jr., the man with the best mullet in pro wrestling and sports entertainment and sport. My guest for episode 27. Thank you very much. Honour and a privilege to get you on, man. Big fan. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you guys for
I tried my best not to come over as a mark, but what can I say?
What
can I say, man?
All marks on the inside.
Big thank you to Mike Angus for the show intro, as always. Superb. Chris Dutton, thank you very much for editing once again. Appreciate it, buddy. And also to Lee, who does my website. Lee puts the stuff up on the website. Without you guys, I'd be screwed. So once again, as always, appreciate everything you do for me and the time you spend doing the things you do for me. It means a lot, guys. Special thank you for the theme song this week, which is by the Zangwills, Sunlight at Midnight. Cheers, boys. Thanks again for letting me use it.